Have you ever wondered why you sometimes feel empty when you have everything you thought you needed? Have you ever noticed that no matter how hard you run after your goals, peace always seems to elude you? What if I told you that there's one simple thing you're not doing, and that's keeping God out of your life? Maybe you think that praying once in a while or being a good person is enough, but is it really? What could be blocking your connection to the divine? Today I'm going to reveal attitudes that may seem harmless, but which are silently creating a chasm between you and the presence of God. I'll also show you what you can do to draw closer to Him in simple, practical, and transformative ways. Stay with me to the end of this video. What you're about to hear could be exactly what your heart has been searching for. Are you ready for this truth? Then come. The answer you've been looking for is closer than you think. Have you ever noticed how life sometimes feels like a weight on your shoulders? There are days when everything seems to be going in the opposite direction of what we want. Moments when prayers don't seem to reach the heavens and the heart feels an inexplicable emptiness. Have you ever wondered why? Many believe that God distances Himself when we face difficulties, but the truth is different. It's not God who distances Himself. It is we who distance ourselves without realizing it. Most of the time, this distancing doesn't happen suddenly. It comes from little habits, thoughts, and attitudes that gradually create an invisible barrier between us and the divine presence. Sometimes it's the hustle and bustle of everyday life that makes us forget to take the time to quiet our minds and listen to what the Spirit is trying to tell us. Other times, it's the hurt we've been holding in that we insist on feeding, as if protecting our pride is more important than freeing our hearts. Have you ever noticed how certain feelings become constant companions? Irritation at small things, impatience in traffic, criticism that comes out without thinking. All this forms a chain that keeps us in a state of disharmony. And when we least expect it, we're immersed in negative thoughts, complaining about life, and forgetting to be grateful for the small blessings that surround us. Ingratitude is one of the most subtle doors through which we distance ourselves from the Creator. Not because He condemns us, but because our hearts are closed to the abundance He wants to offer us. Many imagine that distancing ourselves from God only happens when we make big mistakes or drastic choices. However, it is in routine that this estrangement happens most often. Prioritizing worries, being consumed by fear, or believing that you have to solve everything on your own are attitudes that, without realizing it, make His presence seem distant. How many times have you tried to carry the world on your back, thinking that you have to take care of everything? And how many of those times have you remembered to stop, breathe, and trust? Some people believe that God is only revealed in moments of glory or in miraculous situations, but He is in simplicity, in the smile of a child, in the breeze that touches your face, in the sunset that colors the sky. When we close our eyes to these signs and get caught up in our own worries, we create a curtain that prevents us from seeing the divine that surrounds us. Life is meant to be felt, lived with an open heart and an awareness that is awake to the constant presence of the greater love. I remember seeing a man sitting on the side of a road. His face showed sadness and fatigue. I asked him what was troubling him, and he replied, "I have done so much and nothing seems to change. I ask, I beg, and I'm not heard." I looked into his eyes and said, "It's not that God doesn't hear you, it's that you are surrounded by the noise of doubt and haste. Silence yourself, listen with your heart, and you'll find that the answer is already all around you." We are often so busy looking for solutions that we forget to listen to the silence. And it is in that silence that the Father's voice resounds. If you've ever felt that God is far away, stop for a moment and think, haven't you been distancing yourself from Him with your own thoughts? Modern life teaches us to run, to conquer, to accumulate. But the Spirit invites us to be, to breathe, to trust. When we exchange haste for presence, when we give thanks instead of complaining, something changes in us. The connection that seemed lost begins to be restored. For the bridge between you and God never disappears. It just gets covered by the distractions you allow. And here's a crucial point. This distance is not only made up of external attitudes, but also of the way we communicate with Him. We often talk too much and listen too little. how many prayers have become automatic repetitions without soul, just out of habit? It's like talking to a friend without really listening, and without realizing it, we are doing this to the Creator Himself. This reality leads us to consider something even more subtle, but profoundly transformative. How have you spoken to God? Is the heart present in those words, or have they been lost in an empty routine? Think about it. Because sometimes it's not the silence that drives you away, but the superficiality of the words. How often have you found yourself repeating a prayer without thinking about what you are saying, driven by habit, mumbling the words as if they were part of an automatic routine, without emotion, without presence, just a series of memorized phrases? And then the question arises, does God hear this kind of prayer? Or rather, are you not really listening to your own soul when you speak to Him? Prayer has never been about beautiful words or long speeches. It has always been about connection. What touches the Father's heart is not eloquence, but the sincerity that comes from within. A simple word filled with truth is worth more than 1,000 empty phrases. I remember a woman who once knelt down with tears in her eyes and simply said, "Lord, help me." That short sentence was more powerful than many long prayers said without feeling. Because it's not the number of words that matters, it's the depth of what you feel. It's easy to fall into the trap of haste. We wake up in a hurry, say a quick prayer before leaving the house, sometimes just out of habit, and go about our day believing we have fulfilled a duty to God. But prayer is not a task to be crossed off the list. It's a sacred moment when you take off the masks of the world and present yourself as you are, with your doubts, joys, pains, and gratitude. When this truth is forgotten, the conversation with the Father becomes cold, and little by little the heart loses the flame that illuminates the soul. Have you ever seen someone talking to a friend while they keep looking at their cell phone? Or someone responding automatically when they're distracted? This can happen in your relationship with God. Many people pray while they're thinking about what to do next, what bills to pay, what problems to solve. But how can you receive such an answer? How can you feel God's presence when your mind is elsewhere? Prayer has to be an encounter, and for that you have to be whole, even for a few minutes. There was a man who used to say, "I pray every day, but it feels like I'm talking to the walls." I asked him, "When you pray, do you just expect to be heard, or do you also open yourself to be heard?" Because prayer is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. And in order to hear the answer, you have to be silent. I'm not just talking about the silence around you, but the silence that calms your thoughts and allows your soul to express itself. It is in this space of silence that peace comes and God's voice is heard, not as a sound, but as a certainty in the heart. It's not about following formulas or rituals. The Father is not interested in pretty words. He wants you to be real. If you're sad, say it. If you're grateful, express it. If you don't know what to say, just be present in silence and allow Him to touch your being. There is a language beyond words, the language of the open heart. And in that language you can't escape Him, because it's impossible not to be heard when you speak with your soul. You may ask yourself, but what if I don't feel anything? What if I pray and everything seems empty? Know that prayer has value, even in those moments. Peace doesn't always come right away. Sometimes it manifests itself hours or days later through a new thought, an unexpected sign, or a feeling of lightness that comes without warning. The important thing is to persist sincerely, not expecting a show, but trusting that this communication is like a seed planted. It will sprout at the right time. You don't need special places to pray. You can talk to God while walking, driving, or even in the silence of your bedroom. But do it carefully. Speak as if you were in front of someone who is listening to you with absolute love, because that's exactly what happens. And when you're done, take a deep breath, close your eyes for a moment and just feel. Maybe in that brief moment you'll realize that the answer is already within you. And if prayer is the bridge that connects heaven to your heart, it's important that when you cross it, you know what you're carrying. Because sometimes it's not just empty words that take you away. It's what we choose to put at the center of our lives that determines how close or far we are from Him. Stop for a moment and reflect. What has occupied the most space in your thoughts? What has guided your decisions, your words, and your feelings? Often, without realizing it, you have placed things at the center of your life that don't fulfill what your soul is truly seeking. Ambitions, worries, desires. All of these, when disordered, end up becoming a silent idol that steals your peace and gradually distances you from the Father's presence. The human heart, by its very nature, tends to cling to what is visible and immediate. How many people live for work, sacrificing time with their family, their health, and even their spirituality? The effort to make ends meet is important, yes, but when it becomes the absolute priority, life loses its balance. The same goes for the incessant search for status, recognition, or material goods. Some people devote all their energy to achieving having and forget the value of being. And in the end, even with all this in hand, you still feel the emptiness, as if something essential is missing. Ask yourself honestly, what has guided your choices? Fear of losing out, the desire to be accepted, the desire to be in control. When we make our fears, worries, or ambitions the center of our lives, they become a magnet that attracts restlessness and fatigue. You wake up thinking about what you need to do. You spend the day chasing solutions, and at the end of the day you feel exhausted but still far from what really matters. There was a man who came to me one day and said, "I have worked so hard, Jesus, to give my family the best. I bought a bigger house, changed my car, but why do I feel this emptiness that won't go away?" I looked at him lovingly and asked, "Have you given things or your presence? Have you invested in what is fleeting or in what remains?" He fell silent, and in his eyes the answer came before he said anything. It's not the things that fill the heart. It's the connection to what is true and eternal. It's natural to take care of responsibilities, plan for the future, and want the best for yourself and your loved ones. The problem arises when all of this takes the place that should be the Father's place in your heart. When we put God first, everything else falls into place. Work becomes a blessing, family is viewed with gratitude, and even challenges become opportunities for growth. When He is the center, life flows more easily because you begin to see with the eyes of trust, not fear. But what about distractions? Today, more than ever, the world offers a million ways to occupy your mind. Social networks, endless entertainment, information coming at you all the time. And before you know it, you could be spending hours on things that aren't really nourishing your soul. It's not a matter of condemning these media, but of asking yourself, has it brought me closer to who I want to be? Has it made me a better person? Or has it just distracted me from what is important? When your life is centered on worries, desires, or distractions, peace becomes fleeting. You always feel that something is missing. And do you know why? Because you were made to be filled with love and truth. Everything on the outside changes, passes, disappears, but what is rooted in your soul, no one can take away. So I invite you to reflect. Have you been looking more for the things that shine in your eyes or the things that light up your heart? Nothing is accidental. If you are listening to these words, it is because there is a call to look inward and reorganize what has been a priority. Perhaps, without realizing it, you have placed fear on the throne of your heart, or the need for control, hurt, haste. But today you can choose differently. You can choose to let go of what has been weighing you down and allow what is true to take center stage once again. And when you do, you will see that the peace you have been looking for on the outside has always been available within. And it is precisely as this awareness awakens that an even deeper aspect reveals itself. Love and forgiveness are keys that open inner doors that we often keep closed. For there's no point in rearranging priorities if the heart remains attached to what prevents love from flowing. Have you ever stopped to think how much weight you carry when you choose not to forgive? How often does your heart close in the face of an insult, a harsh word, or a hurtful attitude? Holding on to hurt feelings is like holding a hot coal and hoping the other person will burn. But you're the one who gets hurt first. And here's what many people don't realize. A lack of forgiveness not only creates walls between you and others, it also blocks your connection to God. Not because He turns away, but because it's hard to hear His voice when your heart is full of bitterness. Love and forgiveness are not just nice concepts. They are practical and necessary tools for a light and peaceful life. I remember meeting a man who carried a grudge against his brother for years. "He betrayed me," he said, his eyes heavy with pain. I asked him, "Has this grudge brought you peace?" He lowered his head. Resentment may seem like protection, but it's really a prison. Forgiveness, on the other hand, doesn't justify someone else's mistake. It sets you free. Forgiveness does not say that what happened was right. It's saying that you choose not to carry that pain any longer, and love. Love. How often is it mistaken for a fleeting feeling or something you give only to those who do you good? But true love goes beyond reciprocity. It's a choice. It's easy to love someone who treats you well. It's hard to reach out to someone who has hurt you. But in that act lies the greatest transformation. Because when you choose to love instead of fight back, you light up dark places, inside and outside of you. Have you ever wondered why you sometimes feel a heaviness in your chest, even when everything seems to be going well around you? Often it's pain that's been hidden away in some corner of your heart, a memory that comes back, an anger that manifests itself at unexpected moments. Holding on to it is like walking around with rocks in your pockets. It makes life harder than it needs to be. And you know what happens when you decide to let go? The weight falls off. Your chest opens, breathing becomes easier, and suddenly life takes on new colors. But maybe you're thinking, that's easy to say, it's hard to forgive. And I'm telling you, yes, it is challenging, but it's not impossible. Forgiveness starts with an inner decision, even if it doesn't feel like it. Start by wishing for your own peace. Say to yourself, I choose to let go of this pain. It may take some time, and that's okay. The important thing is to take the first step. And when the pain comes back, choose to forgive again. It's a process, and every little act counts. Love, when it is genuine, is revolutionary. It transforms environments, heals relationships, and calms inner storms. Don't wait until you feel the need to love or forgive. Act first. Sometimes a kind word to someone you don't expect can change everything. A gesture of kindness, even in the face of ingratitude, has the power to break down invisible barriers. Remember, you are not responsible for the attitudes of others, but you can choose your response. And whenever the response is love, you come closer to the divine essence that dwells within you. Some people say, but he doesn't deserve my forgiveness. And I ask you, forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It's an act of self-love that clears the way for good things to come. Hurt takes up space that could be filled with joy and ease and peace. And when you love, even when it's hard, you align yourself with what is true and eternal. In the midst of all this, here's an invitation. Look within. Who needs your forgiveness? It could be someone close to you, or it could be yourself. How often do we blame ourselves for past mistakes, failures, or decisions we would do differently today? Self-love includes forgiveness. Let go of what is holding you back. Let go of what keeps you from moving forward with ease. Life is now. Don't let the past steal the present. And it is in this process of letting go, forgiving, and loving that a new perspective emerges. For as your heart opens, something powerful happens. You reconnect with the purest part of yourself. And from this clean and welcoming space, another question arises. If there is a path to peace, why not start walking it now? After all, getting closer to God is closer than you think. And sometimes it starts with a simple act of love. We've come to an important point. If at any point you have recognized yourself in the previous words, whether it's noticing the distance, the shallowness of your prayers, the misplaced priorities, or the weight of the hurts, it's important to remember that, from now on, the past does not define your relationship with God. Closeness to the Father doesn't lie in complicated rituals, nor does it require perfection. It begins with a decision to open your heart now without waiting for the right time. For the right time is now. Have you ever noticed how we put off what could do us good? We say, when I'm better, I'll go to God. When I've solved my problems, I'll pray again. But this waiting only prolongs the emptiness. The Father doesn't wait for you to be ready to come to Him. He wants you to go with everything you're carrying, joys, sorrows, doubts. He wants you whole, just as you are. For it is in the encounter with this truth that transformation begins. You may ask yourself, start with a sigh, an inward thought, a simple, "I am here, God." Don't worry about beautiful words. Speak as you would to a close friend, because that's what He is, the one who knows you better than you know yourself, and yet loves you beyond measure. Now, if you can, close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in. Feel that you are being heard right now. Not by chance, but because His love is attentive, present, and absolute. Putting God at the center of your life doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities or isolating yourself from the world. It means bringing His presence into every corner of your day. When you wake up, when you work, when you talk to someone, when you face a challenge. It means remembering that in the midst of the rush, you can choose to stop and say, "Father, guide me." And that simple opening makes all the difference. For when you invite God to walk with you, burdens become lighter, and even the most difficult situations take on new meaning. Don't expect things to change overnight. Growing closer to God is an ongoing journey. There will be days when you feel His presence like a warm embrace. Others will feel like silence, but even in the silence, He is working on you. Trust in the process. Trust the love that never fails. And whenever doubt comes, remember, it's not about deserving, it's about availability. Are you willing to let God take His place in your life? Sometimes to get closer, you have to let go of your haste, your anger, your fear. Other times, you just need to rest in the assurance that you are not alone. There is a peace that surpasses human understanding, and it is available to all who truly surrender. No matter what has happened before, no matter how far you have strayed, the Father's love has no limits or conditions. He is always waiting with open arms, but it's up to you to take the step. And if your heart is touched by these words right now, don't put it off. Make this moment a new beginning. Talk to it. Allow yourself to feel the invisible embrace that soothes, that welcomes, that restores. Sometimes all you need is a moment of surrender to realize that God was never far away. It was just you who was too busy to notice His closeness. So for you, what's stopping you from starting now? You don't have to wait for things to settle down on the outside to find peace on the inside. The kingdom of God is within you, accessible, ready to be discovered. And when you decide to really seek Him, life changes, because with Him at the center, every step, every sigh, every challenge becomes part of a greater purpose, one that leads to true freedom, joy, and fulfillment. May you choose that path today. Make room for love, forgiveness, and the divine presence to manifest in your life, not tomorrow, not the day after, but takta. For it is in this moment that change begins, and it is in this moment that God whispers to your heart, "I am here. I have always been." The moment has come to choose, to continue, to carry what is weighing you down, or to place it all in God's hands and set yourself free. Life is short, and every moment is a chance to begin anew. The past cannot be changed, but your now has the power to change the future. Don't wait any longer. The peace you seek is not far away. It is within the reach of a willing heart. When you choose to surrender to love, forgiveness, and the divine presence, all darkness dissipates. You are not alone. You never have been. And you never will be. May the Father's light surround you. May peace reign in your heart, and may the strength to walk in love and truth accompany you each day. Walk with courage, live with purpose, and remember, you are loved, guided, and sustained by a love that never fails. May your path be illuminated, and may you discover the peace that dwells within you.